Hey everybody, welcome back to the DANCNG SOBR podcast, and today we're inside of Tonali Studio in East Los Angeles. Don't forget to come by here and check out the show that is up, and it's at 4539 Cesar Chavez Avenue in East Los Angeles. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, engage with each other in the comments, and let's have some fun here. You can now become a member, so join for just $4.99 a month. And you can use the emojis that I created, including the pan dulce and the cochinito. Sign up and please join. And without further ado, our guest this week is artist, entrepreneur, Altarista, Rosanna Esparza. Hey everybody, welcome back to the DANCNG SOBR podcast, and welcome to the show, Rosanna Esparza. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy that you're here in my space on location at Tonali Studio.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun now. I'm trying to do more shows where I move around more, and especially when I knew that you would have something beautiful in here to have as a backdrop. So here we are.
Yeah.
So I know that we're going to get into all of the Altarista stuff and all of the artist stuff and all of the Day of the Dead stuff too. So let's start this conversation with you on, just a little chit-chat, let's go down memory lane, Holmes.
Damn. Really?
Like the way that I know that you and your family love to do, because we've had a lot of fun conversations in the past, and I always enjoyed like talking and laughing with you guys. So tell me and tell our listeners a little bit about your history and about growing up with the family that you did and having so many people in your house.
A full-on tribe. Yeah. Thank you, Rafa. So I'm from East Los. And Cesar Chavez used to be Brooklyn Avenue. And we used to live just right off Brooklyn Avenue. There's a set of stairs that goes up over here between Hazard and Carmelita, and at the top of those stairs was our childhood home, my childhood home. I'm number 5 of 9 kids. My mother's Ofelia Esparza, my dad's Amado Esparza, but he was boy to his dad, to everybody, Uncle Boy.
Boy,
Compa, wow. Boy.
That's funny. I never heard boy. I've heard guy.
Yeah, but he was boy.
Not boy.
Because he wasn't junior. Like, he's named after his dad.
Oh, that's a trip. I like it.
So, and there's an altar here for my dad that my sister Denise made. It's really beautiful. And if you get any shots in, hopefully you get one of those. So he died in 1991, and he's still, we talk about him all the time, and I just say, hey, Dad, what's up? You're here with me right now. But, so we live in El Hoyo. Yeah. Okay. Garrity's up the hill, and, all the little, I don't want to say little because that's not true. Like the Barrios and the gangs that were associated with the Barrios were alive and thriving when I was a little kid. Yeah. And I just, we lived on top of a hill with no street. I think it used to be a street like in the 1800s. So
some kind of like dirt road, or what was it?
Yeah, it was a dirt road that connected across Brooklyn Avenue, but they cut through the hill to make Brooklyn Avenue.
Oh, wow.
So it was just really hilly, and now there's hillsides on both sides because it was cut down. And it was just a raw dirt hill on both sides. And we'd go to school climbing down the hill.
I've talked about this a few times in the podcast, but again, I get to share like those moments back in the days when we had empty lots, just dirt lots that you could just roam around in and, have fun and make them your playground.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist too much. Every little tiny dirt lot has been made into an apartment complex.
That was our wilderness for sure. Our wilderness, our playground, we didn't camp out there, but we would at home.
Yeah.
So we lived on top of this hill, and 9 kids, the trash, the groceries, sleeping kids, were hiking up and down the hill every day. And so one side was a little less steep, and the Brooklyn side was pretty intense. So eventually there was stairs put in. I don't know why they didn't make a street to the top, but the stairs were put in because my uncle was wounded in Vietnam. He got shot in the head with by a sniper, and he needed, to access the house easier, but they put stairs instead of a street. Wow. Still don't get it, but it was an oasis. Most kids, I don't know, they were just, living in the barrio. They were closer to the gang activities. They were closer to just everything that was going on. And I felt for us, we were in our own just protected space. And not one of us ever got into a gang, although I was the one that was closest to getting in a gang.
Wow.
Because I went to Catholic school, most of us did. Remember, there's 9. So the first 2 never went to Catholic school at all. And then my brother David, Leonard, me, Javi, and my sisters, we all went to Our Lady of Guadalupe, which is just, a couple blocks away. But I had a friend there. Her name was Rosanna Esparza. And I'm Rosanna Esparza. And we were best friends. But her brothers were in Garrity. And
this was the 80s or 70s or 80s?
The 80s.
60s?
Yeah, I was born in 61.
Yeah.
And so I started school in 68, early 70s.
Okay, 70s, yeah.
And so her brothers were like totally into that scene. And so she was like, "Do you want to get jumped in?" And I'm like, "Okay."
No way.
And we had an appointment. to
get jumped in.
To get jumped in with 3 girls on one for like a minute.
Yeah.
And I was going to be a Garrity Loma midget pingüina, and I lived in Eloyo.
It takes less than 1 second to get hit. So 60 seconds of getting hit.
Yeah, well, I didn't go to the appointment.
Oh! Well, that's good.
Yeah, so that was the closest any of us came to being in the gangs here. But we grew up, I don't know, always creating.
Yeah, you guys had your own little, group of friends, which was all siblings, but I'm sure that you guys, had a lot of fun doing things. And
we had neighbors. They'd all come to our house.
Yeah.
And because we did the Olympics there, we had a big slide in the back because we had a hillside that was grassy. But there was magueyes and nopales down there, but we get on cardboard, 1 or 2 at a time, a big piece of cardboard, and slide down the grass into the, but they were so old, they were big, you go under them. They were really old. And we had this big pirul tree and tall grass. My brothers would play army. You could hide in the grass. Yeah. And we'd be hunting each other.
How early are your memories of starting to do crafts and stuff with your family?
Oh, really young. I learned how to sew and crochet when I was I think I was 6 or 7 from my grandmother.
Wow.
But my mom was doing that already. She was making quilts, and we all worked with paper. We made paper flowers.
How many quinceañeras and weddings did you make flowers for back then?
We didn't do quinceañeras. No quinces.
Just weddings? Or not even
weddings? Yeah. But the quinces were...
Well, it was a big deal in the 70s. That's why I like to have the paper flowers on.
Yeah. But for our family, it was like too rich for our blood, I guess, you know. It was... I don't think it was something that the indigenous cultures observed, and my grandmother, my mom and her sisters didn't have quinces, so we didn't do quinces.
Yeah. So where were they from?
They were from Guanímaro, Guanajuato. It's a little pueblo in southern Guanajuato, and they're Purepecha, and they make huge nacimientos and little tiny altars for Day of the Dead, you know?
Nice.
Yeah. So anyway, a lot of handcrafting with paper. My grandmother made, you know, big coronas for funerals and weddings, and she was a cake decorator, so she made big giant wedding cakes, and I learned how to make the roses.
Wow.
You know, when I was little. So we've been crafting and creating since we could do it, I guess. Yeah.
So when do you think you started to like get like more involved, or did it just naturally like evolve into like you working in craft?
In craft, I guess, I mean, if you say working in craft, it was more of just something we did. It wasn't like it was my livelihood, getting paid for it or anything like that. That's only happened in the last, for me, working with my mom in the last 20 years. So, but, you know, we're talking about growing up in that space, it just made room for a lot of time being together and having the neighbors over and knowing who your neighbors are and the families. And there's maybe 2 or 3 neighbors that I know their names
Now,
like in just on my block.
Because the way that it was back then, we knew everybody on the block. Every single person on my block was, you just knew every person, even if they lived alone, if they were old men, you knew them. You knew everybody. Even if they were old Jewish women that we had on the block, like you always said hi, they were always friendly and funny and something like, there was always some kind of interaction. And now it's so rare. I was going to ask, because you have so many like kids now and grandkids in your family, and you're all there. I wonder, like, do you guys still get together like that, and are there still neighbors like that? But
in the neighborhood, no. I mean, our family gets together when we get together, but no, the kids don't play out on the street.
That's what I was gonna.
Yeah, we don't go to the park.
It's so weird, right?
I know.
They don't even want to like picnic at the park. They don't even want to do it.
Yeah, or it's really crazy because I live across the street from Belvedere Middle School, and the amount of cars that show up in the morning and in the afternoon to pick up their kids, their beautiful kids.
Because nobody walks anymore.
Because they can't walk home. They can't take
they used to walk so much.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Miles.
Yeah.
We'd walk miles. Funny. I mean, things are different, and I get it.
I mean, we're also fortunate that we have the kind of things that we can offer our kids nowadays, but it's a huge difference.
And it shifts the culture. The culture is so myopic. Like it.
Yeah.
Instead of having this really big perspective on being in your neighborhood, it's just come down to here and to the phone and to the TV and, play dates.
Yeah. Or online gaming. That's where their community is for some of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's crazy.
I feel really so blessed that I had the childhood I did. And, you know, there's a lot of us that are a little younger that still got to do that, you know, but
so you went to Belvedere and Garfield, I imagine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you're a bulldog all the way.
Yeah.
Tell me some stories about, like, you know, being young and going to school. Travesuras that you got into.
Okay, what's the... so I went to Catholic school, to Guadalupe, and I had an application to go to Sacred Heart of Mary because, you know, everybody did that. And I was accepted, but there's 9 kids in my family. And I don't know why I didn't go, but I ended up going to Belvedere for 1 year. And so there's 9 kids in my family, and I don't think my parents could afford to pay for high school, although my 3 sisters went to Mission High School. But I'm so glad I didn't go to Catholic high school. I was so done.
It has its pros and its cons, yeah.
Yeah, so I went to Belvedere, and they used to call me Duster.
Duster.
Okay.
Wow, I want to know why.
My mom wanted to know why, too. And I'm like, oh, Mom, it's because I run so fast. I leave everybody in the dust. That was my answer. But I'll leave it up to you, too.
Yeah, I get it.
And then I went to Garfield. I had friends there already. I was actually ditching from Catholic school to hang out with my friend Pat, who was going to Garfield. And she knew my brother Leonard. And Leonard was like, you know, he was an athlete. He was cool. People liked him. And so she liked me because I was Leonard's sister. But then we became best friends. And I would ditch from 8th grade to go to Garfield. So people thought I was going to school there. I don't even know how many times I ditched, but I was at Garfield, like, going to class with my friend.
How?
I
you
don't
would
know.
sit in the classrooms?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
So I don't know. I don't even know. But anyway, I ended up going to Garfield. Wow. And I had automatic friends, and I hung out in the mall, and everybody I knew were seniors by the time I got there. And I met my friend Ricky, who was my age, and he's going with me on a trip on Saturday. I'll tell you about that later. But high school was crazy. Yeah, I was a little out of control. My poor mom. Yeah. My poor grandma and my dad.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say about that.
Okay. So, but in high school, were you already, like, hanging out with quote-unquote artists, or were you involved already with, like, somehow the self-help stuff? I don't know how that happened, but...
Yeah. Well, let me backtrack, because in high school, I met a lot of friends that were into punk rock and art. But if we're going to talk about art and artists, when I was in Catholic school, in elementary school, my classmates were Edward Escamilla. People know him as Curly. My other classmate was Arturo Urista.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then my other classmate was Paul Boteo.
Wow.
And so we were in the same class from 1st grade to 8th grade, in the same classroom.
Wow.
38 kids from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And, you know, it's a lifetime of conversations with whenever we get together. It's really cool. But we were the artists in the class, you know, just by default, because we could draw and do things. But I never, like, paid attention to what Paul was doing or what Arturo was doing. Edward, because, you know, he's Mr. Perfect. You know, everything was perfect. and I just tell him that to this day, and we just pick up where we left off, and we call each other half-assed friends because we don't invite each other to
half-assed friends.
Yeah, because I never invite him to my family stuff, and he never invites me to his. But we're like super good friends.
That's hilarious. So, did you ever go to college?
I did.
You did? Okay.
Yeah. So I went to ELAC.
Yeah, same.
And I took a proficiency exam, which was different from the GED.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to go to Garfield anymore.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't going to class, and I'm like, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, and I need a different environment. I kept telling my parents, and I didn't want to take the GED because I'm not going to say why.
Okay.
And the proficiency was like you had to do an essay, you had to do calculus and all that. And I mean, I was down. Like I was a good student when I studied. Yeah. And I passed the proficiency exam because you could go straight to college.
Yeah.
And, you know, and so I took it, I passed. I was already going to ELAC when I was a senior in high school. So,
wow.
And then I ran away from home for 10 months. And I was living with my boyfriend. And
was that also something like from the 70s and 80s? Like there was a lot of runaway girls, I think. Because my house was like where my sister's friends would come because we were always open doors. And one of my friends too came and lived with us. We were like the house where people would come.
To run away to?
Yeah.
Oh man, I should have gone to your house.
My mom cooked good, so.
Oh, yeah. I didn't live with a mama. I lived with friends.
Oh, okay.
And they were mostly guys.
Oh, okay.
And
so it was not good.
We had fun. Yeah. We had a lot of fun. You know, we partied a lot. But I grew up like this. Yeah. And I had to make sure everybody else was okay because it was nuts. Yeah. And it kind of sobered me up real fast.
You were 18? 17?
17, yeah. I just turned 17. Yeah. And so I ran away from home. I ended up going to church.
Wow.
For many years. And I ran away. I ended up at my brother's house with Irma, Alec and Irma and the girls. And I became their instant babysitter. Yeah. Yeah, that was fun. I love you, Misa.
She's a living.
I love you, Michelle and Yvette and Danny.
Yeah.
But it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
And then they kept asking me to go to church. It was a born-again Christian church called my friend's house. And they were crazy, too. So I went, and the very first day I went, I met Rick.
Wow.
Who's now my husband.
Yeah.
And he was
not to be confused with Ricky that you were talking about.
No,
okay.
Yeah, not to be confused with Ricky Beltran. And he was like, muy guapo.
Well,
he is. He still is.
Yeah.
He was wearing cords and Vans and a T-shirt. He had long hair and a big old handlebar mustache.
Nice.
Oh, he was perfect.
Yeah. That 70s, 80s, like early 80s, 70s, yeah.
So that was like 1979.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And anyway, we did church for a while.
Yeah.
But I was just there because I met him, you know. And anyway, there's a lot more to that story and that journey. I didn't become a mom until like 8 years later. So there's a lot of twists and turns to being in different scenes. And I feel like I I totally kind of fell out of what was happening with my friends. And they were going to the X, and they were,
experiencing the waves of music and art.
They were going to the Vex.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to say. They were going to the Vex and Madame Wong's and, all those things. And I went to Madame Wong's, but I never went to an event at Self-Help for the Vex. But I was totally into punk rock, and I was a rocker to the max. Yeah. I played the guitar.
KMET, KLOS.
I love Neil Young. That's how that was my guy. My music is Neil Young. It was very earthy.
Nice.
Yeah.
So now let's talk a little bit about how everything that you do now started to come into your life, because I think it started at about that age, right?
Yeah.
When you were...
But I wanted to mention my friends in high school that I didn't mention.
Yeah.
And so at Garfield, when I actually started going to Garfield, I really got to know Linda Gamboa. She was in our circle of friends, and and Val Echavarria, and Olivia Valdepeña and Blanca, and then Tiny, John, all the guys from the mall. If you're familiar with Garfield, there's a gazebo.
Yeah.
And there's a big grassy area, and we were off to the side, in the mall area where we'd always hang out there and make fun of all the disco girls and say disco sucks, fuck disco, and all of us had huge, big curly hair. We wore flannel shirts and T-shirts and ripped up jeans and construction boots.
Nice.
And we were pretty grungy, And then, my friend Ruby's doing the worm, I don't know who came to play. It was a band that came to play.
It was the very beginning of hip hop, so you had the break dancers, right? So it was the rockers, and then it was the discos, the cha-chas, right? With
the cha-chas.
Or was that later?
It was a little bit later. Yeah. It was disco, total spandex, sequins tube tops and platform shoes.
Yeah.
And Donna Summer was awesome. I did love Donna Summer.
Yeah.
I remember we wore our jeans inside out and wore those stupid little Devo glasses.
Oh my God.
We were crazy. And I remember Ruby doing the worm, and then we all did it. We were on the ground just trembling. It was so dumb, but fun. And then Linda, Loretta, and Val, they were all the trio together from Stevenson, and they're amazing artists, and I tip my hat to them because they inspired me a lot too.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about now how you guys started to get involved with self-help graphics and how that turned into, and maybe we'll get into how you and Rick started Sticky Ricks. Yeah.
So my friend Ricky Beltran, he was an artist. I didn't know that part about him. We talk about that stuff, but it's because we grew up similar with this creative element at home with our mothers. Mm-hmm. And we found out later during the year that his mom and my mom both worked at City Terrace Elementary. Mm. My mom was a teacher, and I think Margaret, she was a teacher's assistant, and they were friends. So we found out that our mothers were friends. I'm like, oh my God, that's so weird, so funny. And they were going to self-help graphics, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go because my mom needs help with the workshops to make flowers. Mm. And so he's like, oh, I'm going there too, because he was already going to ELAC also to do, I think he was doing sign painting. And he was working with Leo Limon in the print shop with the printmaking.
Nice.
And so it just even fortified our friendship even more because we were around each other more, and especially for Day of the Dead. So 1979, we were there doing workshops. And I was there with my mom, and he was there. I think his mom was there too, but that's when that started for me, helping my mom. And there's a picture in the...
Do you know how your mom got involved with self-help?
Yeah, so she gone to visit self-help when they were still in Boyle Heights, beyond Soto over there. And she just visited, but I think Sister Karen put a sign outside looking for teachers for workshops for Day of the Dead. And I don't know if the sign said Day of the Dead, but she went in and talked to Sister Karen. And Sister Karen's like, so what do you know about Day of the Dead? And she's like, well, my mom, my mother, and she's like, you're hired. Show up on Saturday. Yeah. So it definitely was something that my grandmother observed, and it was in her house. There's always a little altar or shrine to, Mama Pola and the Virgen de Guadalupe. But for Day of the Dead, there was flower, the marigolds and candles, and it just got dressed up for different times of the year. But my mom also remembers going to Calvary Cemetery when she was little. My grandmother and her cousin, they would make food, and they would pick flowers from the garden, and basically take a picnic to the cemetery. You couldn't go there at night.
Yeah,
it was never open at night. So they'd take all the kids and they'd walk to Calvary Cemetery, and they'd set it up and make, decorate the little headstone. But it wasn't somebody that was directly related to them. It was somebody from my grandmother's hometown. They were a paisano. And the kids, they get the kids to come and get ready to eat. And really, that's where that oral tradition on Day of the Dead was, at the gravesite. Este es el hijo del señor que, he helped my grandpa build a house, or he was the baker, or, there's one story after another, and then it'd go to her dad and then her grandma, and all those stories got animated into that circle with the kids. And so I picture it this way, like they're sharing from their own memory, but it's this animation that happens, and the kids are like, oh, and that's what it was. Yeah,
like
for
you're
me.
Bringing their image to life in a way. Just talking about it now, like you could imagine it, you could see it, you could imagine,
Exactly.
So we pretty much bring the image forward in our brain. And
and so that's what it was for me when I learned about Mama Pola holding a baby in one hand and rolling a cigarette with the other. It's like, like those. Legend. Those are animated images that I have of the ancestors that my grandmother talked about, the tios and the vecinos and all that. And just, we recently went to Mexico, I think it was 2017, and I recognized so many things, and I'd never been there before. And it was all from her storytelling, from her, that oral tradition of animating these, not just people, but the place, the whole cultural celebrations.
Wow. Yeah. Now, when you started to get involved with self-help graphics and your friends and all that, you were also like, you were already done with like the punk rock and being the rebellious one, or did things try to pull you away? Because like, did you choose the path of art, or I don't know? How did that happen?
I put a lot of things on hold for being married, being a mom, you know, and I love being married. I love being a mom. And my creative juices went into sewing. Like, I just liked creating stuff. And it wasn't even for my son. It was like for the little girls in my family, the nieces and nephews, because I was like making my own style stuff, and I would make stuff for myself. And I was in the fashion industry too, so I was in it for 30 years.
Wow.
And so we were selling clothes, like we were just busy. I was always like, you know, hustling.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever known you to not have like 30 things on your schedule that you're like
I know.
working on.
I know.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So you've been that way ever since. Wow.
Yeah. My grandmother was that. She was always making something for other people.
Yeah.
Like I said, the cakes, the coronas, the food. She was hustling. She was making, and she was an amazing cook. I remember my dad saying, "You live with the best cook in the world, and you didn't learn how to cook."
That's hilarious.
She's an artist.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit now about how, so how did all this, I want to get to the point where, like, you know, because now your family, you know, of course, your mom has been recognized nationally. And you guys are pretty much like, you know, the Altaristas of the world right now. You know, I don't know if there's anybody else if there is somebody else, I don't know, that holds like that kind of title like you guys do right now. Am I just blind to other people, or is that?
Well, there's some amazing altar makers. And,
Yeah.
You know, even my friend Ricky, his mom, Cheeky, Margaret, she is a contemporary of my mom's, and she's an amazing altar maker as well.
And I've seen them here when I come to your exhibits and you invite other people to make altars.
Yeah.
But as far as like being recognized nationally and internationally, like I don't know if there's anybody. I mean, I have seen altars that are insanely beautiful and well crafted and respect like every bit of the tradition. And you know, some of them are a little push the edge, but still hold beauty. Just beautiful stuff every year. But yeah, I still don't know like if there's anybody else that holds that kind of, you know, title like you guys do.
Well, it's 100% due to my mother. You know, she is, she lives and breathes it. And she is an elegant example of being humble in her, you know, she's very unassuming and unpretentious. Like, she's just who she is. And, you know, I've been guilty of calling her a goody two-shoes, you know, because she's so good. My mother is so good.
Because you can't get her to, like, I could see that. Like, you can't get her to say the wrong thing. She'll walk around it.
Well, she's learning acronyms, and she's like, Mija, what is LMAO? What is WTF?
Oh my God. That's funny.
I remember Viola was like, say fuck you, Ophelia.
No. Of course Viola would do that.
She's like,
nope.
He's like, just once, just try.
Yeah.
And then she's like, no.
Yeah, that's good. So
it's really because of
if you could paint the road of like how it started to like how it became like, you know, such a well-known thing.
Well, at Self-Help Graphics, there was Noche de Palabra. I think it was the early 90s. And that was with the poets. And my mom was already creating the community altars with Tomas Benitez. He asked her to make a community altar, and then everybody would come. And then she started sharing about what the altar, what the significance is from what she knew. And she, even today, she says, I don't claim to be an expert. And there's so much to know about the culture, about the symbolism. And there's no one way to look at a marigold, or, you know, this is me now talking. I just, in retrospect and hearing so many people talk about Day of the Dead, and I would never say, oh, they're wrong, you know, because as artists, we empower symbols the way we want them to be, you know, when we're creating something. And we can't profess to know what the ancient people intended for A, B, C, and D. So it's something that has really, in East LA, for example, we don't get to go to the cemetery at night and build altars, except if you're building one at Hollywood Forever or something. But we don't do that. My dream would be able to go back into Evergreen Cemetery with self-help and be able to do a nighttime vigil there with altars. That would be amazing. But that whole thing with self-help and Noche de Palabra turned into Noche de Ofrenda. And it was very gradual, but she started sharing about the altar. She was inviting people to bring pictures and guiding people on putting their things on the altar. They lit candles, they said prayers, you know, and then eventually the poets and the singers started joining in to this moment, and it became Noche de Ofrenda. And that was still in the 90s. And, you know, it got bigger and bigger when, you know, way later on, self-help went to Grand Park, which is like 2011, I think, 2013. And it just became like a thing, right? Like big event. And I was like always leery of the, you know, Grand Park wanting to say, oh, this is ours because it's at Grand Park, but it's something very intimate and important and sacred. So, and my mom is in the center of that because she facilitated it. And so I think that came, you know, into awareness with people that were sharing about self-help graphics, or the news. You know, they've been doing this since, you know, the 70s, and the master altar maker is Rosanna Esparza. And so it just kind of, you know, happened gradually. And as time has gone on, it's just gotten more, it's gotten bigger and global.
And you've always been there by your mom's side. You've always been,
yeah, I mean,
right hand in a way.
Well, my brother, it was my dad at first, and we would go to the house and help make flowers, and that was it. And there was her and my dad, and then whoever was home, like Jackie, Denise, like all of us would help. You know, if Mom said we're going to do this, you know, and they were still at home, and then it was Javi, because my dad passed in 91. And Javi started helping her with the foundations. And we'd go in and help with putting the flowers up. But, you know, she was able to climb stuff and do all that. She still tries. She's 91. She still tries. Yeah, my niece just told me the other day, Mom's like, I climbed the ladder, but I couldn't reach it.
That's not good. And
one day here in the studio, I go to the back, and there's like a a loft area, but it's way up there, and there's not a lot of space for me to stand up. But she was standing up there. And you just climb to the top of an 8-foot ladder, and then you climb on there.
Oh my God.
I'm like, you're going to get down right now.
You're a national treasure. Come down now.
And my siblings would kill me if something happened to you.
Oh my God. That's scary. So everything that you guys have always done has always been like, well, in the beginning, very much intertwined with self-help graphics. So it's kind of like hard to like separate something sometimes. Is you guys being in the original self-help, but in the Cesar Chavez self-help graphics location, and you also did Sticky Rick's business in there, right? But eventually, you guys went to the First Street location for a while, but now you have your own studio here in Boyle Heights. How has that journey been for you guys and your family, and how are you loving now, like? Or hating being in your own place?
Mm-hmm. Well,
this is a lot to like try to put in like a 1-hour podcast, but you know.
Well, I'll just say that self-help was 2 blocks from our house.
I know, it's so perfect.
So when my mom would, be setting up for Day of the Dead, she was a teacher. She worked during the day. She wasn't showing up during the day to do her altars. It was always after dinner. Like, she'd come home and there was dinner and whatever, everything she had to do there. And then go to the gallery. And by then there was a key that was like, oh, give Ophelia the key so she can install. And so we'd be there in the middle of the night. Me, Javi, Mom, Elena, Jackie, whoever was home, Denise. And it was haunted, there was...
I mean, and you're also putting things up of the dead, so...
There was a little girl running upstairs.
No, don't say that.
Yes.
Oh my God, that's scary.
Yeah, so the Crowley funeral house that's across the street, they used to be there.
Oh.
The embalming place was in one of the etching rooms.
That.
Yeah, they had a casket maker. My uncle used to work as with the casket maker. There was a prosthetic shop.
Oh, wow. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Why that building is built that way.
Yeah. And we made an altar. It was called Ode to the Old Barrio. And it was celebrated all those little businesses.
All the little muertitos.
Yeah. It had like a hearse, like a big purple hearse in the front.
God.
But, so we were always there.
Yeah.
And...
I can't imagine, too. I mean, right now that you said that, and I'm imagining all of you guys there and all the work that you guys put into it. There couldn't have been, like, a lot of money in it, right?
There was zero.
That's what I imagined. So I'm thinking, like, wow, all of the work that you guys put in and all that, that's, wow.
There was zero money in it. And, maybe my mom got reimbursed for some materials.
Yeah.
But, I mean, she was used to it. She was a teacher spending money on her students.
Yeah.
And she was an artist. She needed to create. She wanted to. And she put her whole heart into it. And all her altars were beautiful, really beautiful. And there were, people were taking pictures of them, not giving her credit. Like, it happened for years and years and years. Wow. So there's lots of photographs of altars out there that I don't know if my mom has pictures of all of her altars, but if you have a picture of my mom's altar somewhere out there in podcast land, please
contact.
Yeah,
What's
please
your email?
send it. Send it to Rafa.
No, what's your email?
Oh, to Zan at Tonali Studio. ZANTONALLI studio.com. Yeah, that would be such a beautiful and generous gift to the archive that we're trying to build. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
So, there's a lot of intertwining with me, my siblings, my mom, and we come in and out of the scene as the years go by. I started helping with workshops, and that last part of the 90s and into the 2000s, I was helping, and I think it was mid-2000s I met Dewey and Becky, and and we became friends, and then everybody else, and Vile came along, and they were doing the graffiti out in the parking lot. I met you, and it was just a cool little vibe, It's always been a cool little vibe, unless you're like, trying to close down self-help and everybody gets crazy.
That's different. No, it was always welcoming, and to any like artistic ideas or spirit, and that's one of the things that I loved about it. And I mean, just to make my story real quick, it helped me to learn to use art in ways that I didn't know were possible, right? Because I was just going around shooting for fun, but then I learned how, I could actually use this as, something that I can do for a living or stuff like that. Yeah. So it was actually self-help that taught me how to do that.
And you made prints,
Yeah, and I ended up, that's how I ended up making photo thing as a job, and that's how I ended up making prints, because of self-help, So
it's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. It's very welcoming. The old space that we miss so much, I still miss it, Even when I pass by it, it's so sad to think of I don't know what's inside, but it's just sad to imagine that self-help is not inside it anymore. And to see that parking lot, closed off by plants. It's like, that parking lot was it.
Once you're inside the parking lot, you're at self-help. And it was just...
Or you're shopping at the hardware store.
At the hardware store. I have a picture of my son when he was 7, holding his Ninja Turtles with a Ninja Turtle face paint in front of the mosaic. And then I have another one of him, 20 years later, maybe 15 years later, and he's got a guitar and his hair is all froed out in front of the same wall. I'll send them to you.
We're actually already at an hour. I'm wondering if there's anything else that you want to add, or we could still keep going if you like, but what else do you want to include in here that we haven't? I know that Day of the Dead is coming up and you guys are extremely busy, but Day of the Dead is not all that you guys always did, right? There's other workshops and things that you work on and shows here.
So we became part of Alliance for California Traditional Art, ACTA, and a lot of our time working, I'm using quotes there, is because, we got paid to do workshops, which is really amazing to be able to share about not only Day of the Dead, but what that means as a healing process. So, we're working with people in the community, and we're asked, how would you share it in a PowerPoint, basically? You're presenting. I had to present something, and I had to really think about what the process is of making an altar, and I didn't invent a process. It's just the process that we use to make an altar is we arrive, we show up, whether we're making flowers or building the altar, we're with an intention, right? We're making flowers for an altar for my dad. And so we start cutting paper. We're in a circle with my sisters or community, and we start, it's not this static activity. We're talking about dad and how,
filling the air. The air fills with.
Yeah, my brother would say, "Dad, make me an egg," and then he puts his finger on his forehead and says, "You're an egg." Goofy dad humor, sharing those stories and loving our dad and making flowers. So we're arriving. We're agreeing that, this is it. In this space, we agree that this is sacred. It's a sacred activity. And we're connecting. We're telling stories. We're just loving each other. We're loving Dad. We're loving each other. We're loving the moment. And then we're affirming, like, isn't this amazing? Like, what are you walking away with? Or we don't actually say that when we're with family, but when we do presentations, we do that. We arrive with a meditation. Like yesterday, we were at LACC. We did flower making. And I went from a photo shoot to that in 15 minutes at LACC. And I was like Ace Ventura, like parking like a glove, right? And we got there at 12. It was supposed to start at 12. So I'm calling the coordinator and I'm like, pull up Google Drive, my presentation's on there. I just need to sign in and we could start.
Yeah. Wow.
And we start right at 12. And I was like, that was crazy.
Wow.
But I needed to arrive. And I'm like, I need to arrive. I just got here all crazy. And it's been a day, and I'm sure you've had a day. So we're going to breathe together. We're going to just connect to the earth, to the cosmos, and just show up in the space. And we did. And it was beautiful. And we thought about the ancestors looking on us and saying, yes, I approve. Yeah. You are my dream. Yeah. So that we called it arriving, agreeing, connecting, and approving is called acá. Over here. Come over here. We're going to show up here. And that has turned into many, many things in many different spaces, depending on who we're working with. And one of the spaces is a men's prison. And it's the most beautiful thing to show up at a prison that's 2.5 hours away on a Sunday morning at 9:00 in the morning.
Wow.
And the gratitude coming from the other end is so immense. It just makes it, my mother absolutely would not miss going, meaning miss a meeting.
Yeah.
It was like
she would never want to
disappoint
disappoint them.
She never wanted to disappoint them, and they absolutely loved her.
Of course.
And me. But they're like, don't drive so fast. Because my mom's like, we're going 80 miles an hour.
Oh my God. Explain it to me again, the ACGA. I like that a lot.
Arriving.
So go through each one. Arriving.
Explain
arriving.
Arriving is to show up. You arrive physically, but you haven't arrived emotionally. You haven't arrived spiritually.
Be here.
Yeah. Be here.
Okay.
So we call ourselves back into the space.
I like that a lot.
And ground it. Like imagine your feet in the ground and you're just present completely.
Okay, arriving.
Agreeing. And it's a given, right, that we're here. It's like when you go to the doctor.
Yeah.
There's agreements that are happening that you're not vocalizing.
Yeah.
But you're showing up to this person and you're going to tell them how you feel physically, and they're going to tell you the truth. There's agreements on both sides. Yeah. And we've had this process with medical students saying, what if the examination room was a sacred space where agreements are made?
That's good, yeah.
And so we agree that this is going to happen in this space, whatever that is.
Okay.
So those set of parameters already, they're given, but you want to vocalize them. Connecting.
Arriving, agreeing, connecting.
Yes. So connecting is speaking from the heart, speaking from
So with
yourself.
each other now.
Yes, yeah.
Now we're with each other
Yeah.
connecting. Okay.
Yeah. And the expectation is I understand, or I did this, or, you know, it's not like, oh, they, but it's speaking from your own experience. And if you don't understand, then you ask. And it's like, oh, I heard you say this, but I don't know what that means. What do you mean by that? You know, it's okay to do this. And then affirming what is the
AACA?
Yeah.
Okay.
And affirmation. Yeah, you know, normally an affirmation is you're speaking from a place of something that's already happened, right? Like in the future, but it's concrete. Like, oh yeah, if I tell you, you know, 2 weeks from now, I did this, you know, or this happened, and it's in the future, but it already happened.
Got it.
And we're taking affirmation there, and also saying, I am walking away with this new knowledge, you know, or this new perspective or whatever. And 100% of the people, if there's time, share that, and it's expected. It's said in the beginning. By the end, 100% of you are going to share what you got out of this.
Wow, that's good.
So that's Aka.
Yeah. And that's it. It's 4?
Yeah.
Okay. I love it. I like that a lot. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I'm going to repeat that
Yeah.
for myself over and over and over.
It's meant to be that way.
Yeah, I
right?
like it a lot. Yeah.
You know, I can't say that,
It's just one of those things that it's so much better once you're able to put like titles and like they say, you know, put a name to it, and now you know you can just go through those 4 things and be like, all right, I'm good. Like,
yeah.
It puts your head in the right place. I really appreciate things like that. Yeah.
It just gives structure to
structure
to our own.
Those without structure. Because I am this guy, no focus, no direction. That's me. So so when I find things like that, it really helps out a lot. So we're definitely at the end.
Yeah.
Totally appreciate your time and your stories. It is really difficult to like get so many stories in 1 hour. But thank you so much. We do have a question that we ask everybody at the end of each podcast. And I'm glad you're surprised, because it's always fun when the person doesn't know that. So at the end of each podcast, we always ask. And we ask that you try to answer in 1 sentence. So if a being from another planet or a spirit from another realm or whatever it is, the little girl from Self-Help Graphics that scared you, something presented itself in front of you, and they were able to look at you and see your entire life and everything that you've done and all the things that you've been through and all of your crazy achievements and your craziness as well. And they're just blown away by all of the work that you do and everything that you give. If this being was able to grab all that, look at you, and you understood that they understood you, and they asked, how do you do it? What would you say? Rosanna Esparza, how do you do it?
I just do.
It works.
That's the truth.
Yeah, it's just forward motion sometimes.
Totally propelled with everything I've got. Everything I've got, I just do.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. It's really good to see you in your space here. Don't forget to come out to Tonali Studios, 4539 Cesar Chavez Avenue.
Thank you, Rafa.
Thank you, and we'll see you guys next week.